Hey everybody, welcome to the Slices podcast on the horror slash YouTube channel. I am here with writer, director, producer, actor, makeup, special effects, author, William Butler.
Janitor, housekeeper, valet.
Wow.
All of it. I do it all, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to ask you that because I mean, you really do run the table of all the coolest positions in a horror film.
I have been very lucky.
Makeup and effects in that, so I'm kind of interested in it all.
Cool. I'll tell you whatever you want to hear.
So first of all, how's everything in Hollywood these days?
It's crazy. 1 in 3 people here has COVID, and nobody's in town. Nobody's working. I somehow managed to finagle a writing and directing job. I created this TV series called Miskatonic You, which is going to air on Amazon Prime at the end of February. But I mean, that's the first job I've had since, I'm not exaggerating, since March. Yeah, I mean, there's been no work here. And I never leave the house. It's me and my amazing dogs. I got a lot of writing done and boatloads of podcasts during Halloween, because as you know, they bring me out of the mothballs every Halloween and look at me go. But it's been busy. It hasn't been slow, but
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And of course, you got a book out.
Yes.
Well, it's coming out. It's coming out.
Yeah. It comes out on May 1st.
Can we go through the title of this book? Because it's
if I can remember the title. It's called, what is it called?
The Tawdry
Tales and Confessions. Why was I going to say Trials and Tribulations? That's a whole other book. I got to write that down.
There you go.
Tawdry Tales and Confessions from Horror's Boy Next Door. And I could not be prouder of it. I spent all last year writing it, and then the world fell apart, and I spent the last 6 months editing it, and oh my gosh, there's dozens and dozens of never before seen pictures along my journey from the time that I started out working on movies like Reanimator and From Beyond, Robojocks, Arena, Spellcaster, a lot of stuff for Empire Pictures when I lived in Rome working for them, to when I jumped ship and became an actor, the Friday the 13th Part 7, Buried Alive. I mean, tons and tons. So there's literally over 100 pictures in there. And I have to say, I think going through all the pictures and picking the pictures was harder than writing it. And that's
really,
it's insanity trying to you pick the picture and then you send it to them and then they tell you it's not big enough or it's blurry or blah, blah, blah. And it's been, I'm not looking for the next book I write, no pictures. It'll be a coloring book.
That's well, you know what, but it's kind of interesting that you kind of mentioned that, because a lot of people will recognize your face, as humble as you pretend to be, or they will recognize your face, but they have no idea sometimes how deeply rooted you are in this genre and in this industry. So it's really kind of interesting to hear you talk about it, and I'm sure the book is going to be pretty.
Oh my gosh, it's everything. Well, I always say I was never famous. I definitely am that person that you run into at the grocery store where you think you went to school with me, or you think that I know someone in your family. Never famous. I call it mid to low shelf fame, bottom shelf fame. But definitely I've been around, and yeah, like you said, I've probably worked more than anyone I know. A lot of the stuff I've done also was in production, and I was really lucky to be acting while I was, young, and love to be photographed, and now I hide in the shadows with the rest of the crew.
So I want to ask you about one thing before we really get into it. What is the Mickey Rooney of horror all about?
Okay, that's funny. Okay, so when I first started acting, I met Tony Timpone and Anthony Ferrante.
What year was that around?
Oh my gosh, 83?
Oh, wow.
84, something like that. They were really, really nice. And I was never anything that special. I was never that great of an actor. I looked okay. I didn't fuck things up. And I absolutely was the biggest horror nerd on the planet, and I just absolutely loved being in the projects, and I just ate, breathed, slept horror, and I kind of became Fangoria's like kind of guy that they would put in the magazine every other month, and they just kind of did me a solid by just constantly treating me like I was somebody, and because they treated me like that, the fans treated me that way accordingly, and I just became sort of the perennial guy once a year who was in one of these franchises, good, bad, or stupid, where I was the boy next door in so many horror films that I just became like that guy, never the lead, but always the friend of the lead, or the nerd or whatever. I was the perennial victim that came once a year, whether you liked it or not. Oh, there's that guy again. So sooner or later, all my friends started calling me the Mickey Rooney of horror, because he was in many, many things, and it stuck. And I thought it was funny. I originally wanted my book to be called Confessions from the Mickey Rooney of Horror, but then my publisher said I would be sued. So there you have it. Name change happened.
That's pretty awesome. So I'm sure what we're going to get into a lot of things, and I'm sure one of the things that horror fans want to know is what was your experience like on 52 Pickup?
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's a random. Well, funny story.
I like the movie. I'm the reason why I ask is I've been a fan of that movie, so it's not just so random for me.
Okay, so I had met Vanity when I was little, and I got my first kiss from Vanity.
Wow.
Believe it or not. My parents used to do backstage catering. This is in my book, by the way. Okay. They did backstage catering for Barnum and Bailey, for the Selland Arena in Fresno. We did Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. We did Prince. We did Hall & Oates. We did Aerosmith. Every hair band on the planet, we would do the catering and the arena catering for. So I'll tell you a quick story about Vanity, and I'll get to 52 Pickup. Trust me, it's worth the ride. Right. So I was about 13 years old, 200 pounds, 4 feet tall, with a home perm. And my mom's treat for my sister and I used to be that we could go and bring the food to the famous people when they were doing their concerts. And so Prince came, and I didn't really know who he was. It was brand new, but MTV was around, and it really exploded.
Wow.
So my mom said, you're going to be able to bring Prince's food back to his dressing room. So
okay, so wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what did mom do?
Yeah, my mother was in charge of this Volume Services. It was a food company that provided food for hot dogs for the arenas, backstage catering for they did everything.
That's
booze
awesome.
For the rocker. Yeah, it was amazing. And like I said, we worked with the circus. We were on the Carnival Midway. We did everything.
Yeah.
And my mom was one of a team of people, but because my mother was a single mother, she would bring, and we didn't want to hire a babysitter. She'd bring her kids with us and put aprons on us, and lo and behold, here we are working in the circus at 13 years old. So anyway, and I couldn't be happier. So anyhow, we were going to deliver the food to Prince's dressing room, and when rock and roll people come into town, they have what's called a rider, and it tells you what you can and you cannot put in their dressing room. And on Prince's rider, it said things like chicken wings and fruit, and at the bottom of the rider, it said a tray of warm nuts, absolutely no cashews, right? Well, I don't know how it happened, but somebody didn't read that line. And my mother dressed myself and my sister up in these outfits with the little bow ties, and I was this little fat melon-headed kid with a bow tie pushing this huge food cart full of food towards this beautiful purple tent that they had built for him, sort of this chic-y tent at this Selland Arena. And my sister would carry this little tray with like desserts on it, and my mother would aim us towards the dressing room. We'd go in, and it's very specifically, don't talk to them, don't look to them, don't do anything, just bring the food in there and leave. Okay. So I wheel this cart in, and I start to set the food down, and I pick the tray up, and I look in the tray, and I see there's tons of cashews in it. So I'm like, oh shit. So I go set the tray on the end. Prince is like laid out like Cleopatra on this purple couch, in the middle of this tent with all these like music industry people. So I go to put the tray down to get out of there, and he goes, "You." I turn. He's like, "Over here." I pick the tray up, and I go and I put the tray down on the coffee table that's in front of him.
Did he actually say "you" over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it gets worse. It gets worse.
Okay.
So I go to turn to tiptoe my little fat ass out of there, and he goes, "Stop!" It stopped. I turn around. He goes, "Come here. Stand right there." And I stood in front of the couch, and he went like this to every single one of those cashews on that tray. Ping, 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 ping. Flicked them all. By the time he got about to the 7th one, I hear from across the room, "Prince!" Standing in the doorway, looking like the ultimate in top shelf pussy, glimmering from head to toe in lingerie, is Vanity, with her big hair and her glitter, and she had this white Mary Widow thing on, and she's really pretty, really pretty. Wow. She goes, "Come here." She goes, "Don't do that." She yells at him. She goes, "Come over here." She grabbed my big fat meat melon in her hands, and she goes, "Whatever you do in life, do not ever let anyone do that to you, ever. Do you understand me?" Oh, yeah.
Holy crap.
She just bent down and kissed me right on the mouth, full on.
And you were 13?
Standing there, 13, standing there stunned. And then she just goes, "Now go get my chicken wings." So I come staggering out of the tent. I knew this was going to connect to 52 pickup. I come staggering out of the tent, like with birds tweet around my head. My mom goes, "What's wrong with you?" I go, "That lady in there kissed me." It wasn't until years later that I realized it was Vanity. I didn't even know who she was at the time. Yeah. So years later, time passes. I work for Butler, and there was a time period in the 80s where there was so much work that you would never have a day off. It was literally, you were turning work down. So I would go from Butler shop to K&B to Moni Monsanto. I'm a good painter, and that's my one way to get in with all those guys was I'm a decent painter. And back then they weren't too picky. So I went to go work on Journey to the Center of the Earth, which Menachem Golan was doing. I painted these giant worms. And then while we were doing Journey to the Center of the Earth, 52 Pickup came. And there was a shot in the show where Vanity gets her throat shot. I don't know if it ended up in the movie still, where she gets shot in the throat.
I guess there was
a big effect where she gets shot in the throat, and we had to do her neck cast, and she came in and was coked out of her mind. And as a matter of fact, so was I, but that's neither here nor there. She sat in the chair, and I remember she had extensions. She was the first person that I ever knew in LA that had hair extensions. I didn't even know what they were back then. And we had to put her hair in a ponytail, and we had to throw a string around the rafters and have her ponytail sitting straight up. And we were doing her neck cast. She was really nice. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me, and then I said, do you recognize me? She's like, "No, do I know you?" And I was like, "I got my first kiss from you." She goes, "What?" I told her she didn't remember any of it.
Scared the hell out of her.
She was coked out of her mind. I was like, "I got my first kiss from you. Are you holding? Because I could really use a little something." No, but anyway, yeah. So I worked at 52. Wow. I didn't apply it on set. I helped do the neck cast, and then I can't remember who the guy was who applied it. At that time, Menachem Golan was cranking movies out, and then oddly enough, 3 years later, I was acting in movies for him. It was bizarre, part of my further bizarre journey. But yeah, it was fun. 52 Pickup. That's a random one. No one ever asked about that. So you do get bonus points.
Yeah, well, you're gonna get some of that from me, but hopefully I won't catch you too off guard on things. But let's start with makeup. Is that fair to say? We could start with that was the earliest William Butler in the film industry. So let's start from where it all began. Like, how did you you're
Mm-hmm.
in LA. Obviously, you kind of come from a family that is in this bit in this
Around,
world.
they were
in this
around
world.
it. They
Yeah.
never told me no, you're not gonna do it, but
Mhm.
they certainly didn't know about acting. They certainly didn't know about filmmaking.
Yeah.
But we were around it. Yeah, we
Okay.
were around it.
All right. So let's get to makeup.
So Johnny Vulich and I, my friend who's a 3-time Emmy Award winner, he won an Emmy for the makeup in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for X-Files, and for Babylon 5. I grew up with him. Him and I were best friends. I would make Super 8 movies and he would do all the makeups. And when we were little, of 13 and beyond, in Fresno, Central California, we would talk about how we were going to move to Hollywood and make movies, and he was going to do the makeup and I was going to direct them. And that's all we talked about, frankly. And we would just do nothing but hang out at his palatial rich parents' house and sculpt and watch Evil Dead over and over again, and religiously read anything about Tom Savini, any movie that Tom Savini worked on, any books that Tom Savini was in, magazines. We absolutely loved him. And, Johnny was fun. I was as milquetoast as you could get. I didn't have any discernible talent, but Vulich, he was sculpting and doing makeups at a professional level at probably 13. He was incredibly gifted. And he would do makeups on me, and we would, like I said, we would sculpt. Mine would look like hunks of clay and his would look like the real thing. And he would take tons of pictures and he would send Polaroids to Savini. And one day I went over to his house and he said, I said, who are you talking to? He said, Tom Savini. I'm like, what? It's by the time he's like 17. I'm like, Savini liked my work. And I was like, oh my God, really? He's like, yeah. He said, I'm going to work on Friday the 13th, part 4. I'm going to be an assistant. So he went there, and I was younger than him. I was about 3 years younger than him. And I was certainly not mentally ready to move to LA. I had not ever been anything, nothing that you had by then. I was extremely immature and didn't really know how to do anything in life. I hadn't written a check or been kissed or didn't know how to change oil. I just was sort of lost. And
I changed oil. I like how that had to be.
Well, I drove my car until it, it threw a rod where it's like, it's like, oh, you put oil in it? Like, I just was very young, 16 years old. So anyway, so Vulich went there and I was dispatching tow trucks at AAA, and he's like, listen to me, there's tons of work here. Like, get out here. I'm telling you right now, with your painting skills, even your shittiest paint job, they have people that paint props and paint little things that don't matter, eyeballs and stuff. Like, you could get a job here. I'm like, oh, okay. So well, where will I stay? And so I don't want to give everything away from my book because there's a lot of this in my book. But basically, we plotted for me to go and live with John and go try to find a job out there. On the day that I moved out there, Vulich went on location for 3 months, and I ended up being broke and living in my car for 2 months. Man. So, which ended up being okay.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah. So I just was like, this is the worst idea ever. And then just as I was about ready to pack it up, I called him from a payphone. There's no computers, there's no nothing. And John said, I'm working at this shop. This guy is famous for giving people their breaks, and he's really, really nice. And I know if you come and tell him, what your plan is, that he'll like you, because he'll like you. And I was like, really? Okay. So I went there, and sure enough, I went to John Buechler's shop, MMI, told him I wanted to, had acted as a kid, I wanted to act as an adult, and I was a decent painter, I was reliable, and that I'm just was looking for a job where I could dump garbages or sweep the floor, just where I was making enough money to pay enough rent to like go to acting class. And Buechler was so nice that he said, well, then we have to make that happen. He gave me a job. I started sweeping the floors there. Within a month, I was painting things. And then within 3 months, I was flying to Spain to work on Eliminators with Mike Deek, my other friend who got hired there. So I worked on Reanimator. I worked on Troll. I worked on Dolls before I painting stuff before it left.
Mhm.
And then the first thing that I actually went overseas for was Eliminators, and I worked there. And then I worked for Beekler for 5 years, and got to know Charlie Band. And then once Charlie Band realized I was an actor and realized I was already going to be over there, he started giving me acting parts. I got my SAG card, and it just went on and on.
That's
So that's how I
awesome.
got my start in effects.
It, it's always that, like, I was on my last time, I was ready to go back, and then that's when it's always, I mean, not to
A
say your
100
story is
times, by
cliche,
the
but
way.
like it's so funny, eh? You just stay that extra day
But
sometimes,
dude,
and
it's also show business is like this. It doesn't just go like this. It goes
yeah.
like this. Then you're loaded. Then you have nothing. Then you're loaded. Then you have nothing. Then you're
Yeah.
loaded. Then you're a has-been. Then you make a comeback. I mean, it's so strange, you know.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to work in so many different departments that when things slow down, and they absolutely do slow down, I'm
Mhm.
able to write or whatever. And
Yeah.
these days I like writing so much. If I could just only do that, I would probably only do that.
Yeah.
I don't really enjoy the process of being on set filming as much as I do. I do like producing and making a finished movie, but the shooting, they give you shorter and shorter schedules these days. So
Yeah.
I think writing is now my main thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you've been around long enough to see this industry in that city probably change quite a bit. And
Oh, there's nobody here. I'm the only one left here. There's no one living here anymore. Everyone's gone. All my friends that are Rusty Schwimmer, my friend from Perfect Storm, she lives in Chicago. Gail O'Grady, good actress friend, she lives in Vegas. Mo and Alex, my best friends next door. Mo Collins from Fear the Walking Dead. They moved to Austin. Like, there's no one left here, or they're dead.
yeah.
Volich died eventually, and you know. So the best I can hope for is to die or to move out of town.
All right. Well, wait, before, okay, now you kind of like were selling your talent short. I've seen some of your like your makeup stuff, and you're not,
All right.
you're pretty good.
I'm no Dick Smith, but if you put a lot of blood on it and a lot of hair on it, make it go like this a lot.
You're
Then,
underselling yourself. So I'm gonna
yeah.
mention a couple of a few films that you've got some makeup or special effects teams credits for, and maybe you could just kind of get into the experience. We'll keep it kind of short, but the Flintstones.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, that was during a
Do we
very
have a Spielberg story?
no, but we have a huge drug story.
Okay, well, if not, then
That
that's
was
best.
that was around, what was that, 94, 93.
Yeah, early '90s,
I,
definitely.
I may or may not have developed a slight cocaine and speed problem during that time
Mm.
period. I'm a little hazy to give you the exact details, but I was very meticulous in my artwork, as you might imagine. And so the company that I was painting for and building stuff for, oh, this is a cokehead's dream come true. So I was asked to Pebbles in the movie
Hmm.
had a dollhouse that was a meticulous recreation of the Flintstones house. I mean, the chairs, the tea kettle on the stove, and they had these guys come in and they carved these toys for Pebbles and Bam Bam. It wasn't just a dollhouse, but I remember really zeroing in on that dollhouse. So they carved this stuff out of this green foam, and then they shellac it with resin, and they put me in the corner for 3 or 4 days straight. I don't think I ever left the stool. And with a ton of paints, if you're an artist, it was a dream come true. And these little tiny paintbrushes, and I sat there and painted every frigging knot hole and everything in Pebbles dollhouse and all her toys and all of Bam Bam's toys. I did all the patina to make it look like rock, and oh, it was great. It was a really
Are you at that point? Sorry, are you thinking like at that point? Holy crap! I'm on a Spielberg film. Like,
oh
is
yeah,
that running through your head? Like, that's got to be,
oh
no?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Because that wasn't the first
No
thing.
matter how
That
much
wasn't the
coke
first
you're
thing that.
on, I mean,
Well, I wasn't alone in that. I'll just leave it
yeah.
at that. But uh, um, yes, and it wasn't the first time that I had worked around him,
Hmm.
and so I wasn't. I'll tell you, the first time that I got the Spielberg fever was I was working at Beekler's, and Bob Kurtzman said to me, "This is way before that Flintstones movie." Bob Kurtzman said, "Will you help me do a life cast today? I'm doing a little side work, and I got to do a life cast today." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What's it for?" And he was like, "I don't know. Some actress is coming in. Spielberg's trying to win an Oscar on some movie he's trying to do based on a book." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." In comes Whoopi Goldberg, and it was Color Purple.
Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of hers because she had a huge stage show that was a very famous stage show before she got Color Purple. And I'm an improviser and she's an improviser. And I had the hardest time like shutting my mouth, and my hands are trembling as we were doing her head cast. And that time I was a little intimidated because it was a Steven Spielberg thing. But by then, after I'd seen him, I've seen the way he functions, I was not intimidated or that thrilled to see him.
There's a story. There's a story there.
No, it's just like, you can't fuck up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you walk into the room and there's like 15. He's really nice. There's like 15. He's not the problem. The 15 people that are standing around him that are staring at you like, you better have the right answer.
Yeah.
I'll give you a classic example of the wrong answer. I worked on a TV show. It wasn't just me. I was a part of a huge team. He did a TV show about people that lived underwater. I can't think of the name of it. I can never remember it, but we shot at Universal. It was about people that live underwater. It was one of the first things that were like that. And he was the executive producer on it. So the guy that they hire, who I worked for, to build these suits, we were all gacked out of our mind. We were unfocused, doing drugs all night long, not paying attention. You have to understand, we were building suits that had to be submerged in the water with the talent on them, in them. So we're doing the first shot of the title sequence where this like hydraulic lift with these 5 amazingly gorgeous actors with these like kind of space suits, and they're standing in waist deep water, and this hydraulic lift starts going down, 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 and they're all posing for the thing. And then as they're going down, on the inside of their helmet, you're seeing like glug, 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 and they're all like crashing. It's like, oh my god. So I call this guy that I didn't know what to do. I was just some shemp that was, bondoing and sandpapering these fiber. They weren't real functioning suits, but they were certainly supposed to be watertight. So
at the very least.
I call the guy that's in charge, and I'm like, Michael, the helmets, when they go underwater, they're filling up with water. And he's like, it's no big deal. I'm like, it's no big deal. Everyone's fucking staring at me right now. How do we fix this? He's like, send a PA. He really said this. Send a PA to Toys R Us. I'm like, okay. And buy a case of silly putty. I go, all right. And he goes, and go take the helmets, put them under the water, and wherever you see the bubbles go up, cram silly putty in there. I was like, you're fucking out of your mind. I didn't know what to do, but number one rule on set is to never, ever, ever break a sweat. Do not let them know that you're freaking out. So I went, yeah, we just have to tweak some things. And they go get the silly putty, and lo and behold, it worked. I couldn't believe it. So, but I do remember Lee. His name was Lee. Lee, who worked for Spielberg, was not a happy camper. I do remember that. But, yeah. So anyway, he's nice. And Steven Spielberg is nice, but it's just you can't be putting actors that make $100,000 a week underwater and drown them. That's all. Can't blame him for getting
even for Spielberg.
Right. I mean, come on.
Well, it's funny because you're saying that Spielberg is nice, but it could be like a Godfather thing, right? Like he's smiling, looks nice, and then he whispers in the ear of his big henchman, and there you go. And that's the guy who isn't.
Yeah.
Nice. So
his name was Lee, Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Yeah.
All right.
I wish Peter Garcia was here because we used to laugh all the time. We would be still having a good time because it wasn't our company. So we would do the best we could, but the bottom line is it wasn't our company. We were just the employees. So it's like, well, we might get fired, but our heads aren't going to get cut off like who's. Well, anyway.
All right, so we're going to go on to Demolition Man.
I think it was Sequest was the show.
Sequest?
Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
It may have been. I think I remember it.
And it was like the kid from Star Trek.
I'm going to look it up. Yeah.
No. But it's driving me crazy. But I was in this huge water tank set on Universal. I mean, you never seen such beautiful stuff. We also did Earth 2, another show for them, and we did Demolition Man, but we didn't do that. We didn't do that for Amblin. We did same company did Demolition Man.
So I just typed in Spielberg in IMDb, and I got Jonathan Spielberg first. So I guess
Oh, maybe that's his cousin.
Steven's struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay. So
Maybe
why
he
don't
has
we
pen
get
name.
on to Demolition Man? Just a quick story, or like, I mean, what was your role
Yeah.
in that?
So on Demolition Man, it was the same company. So you're landing right in the exact same time frame. It's weird. Flintstones, Sequest, Earth 2. I can't remember what we did on Earth 2, but we did get in trouble on that one too. And then on Demolition Man, we didn't get into trouble, but we built. So he gets frozen. You know, I think Michael Burnett made that big block of ice with the Stallone mannequin in it that's frozen. I think Michael Burnett built that, and we were right across the street. Where were we across it? We were down the street. We built the Museum of Weaponry. So all of all those gray mannequins that were all in the like poses. I mean, there must have been 100 of them, and it took us like 6 months to make them all. And so we all, if you look closely, that's us. Like if you can see like me, you can see like we cast our own bodies, like doing stuff, you know, action poses, and they were all holding like guns and stuff. Yeah. So that's really all we did on that one, but it was a tremendous amount of work. But yeah, we took mannequins. I think we took some mannequins and altered them, and then we sculpted other mannequins from beginning to end.
That's cool. And it was Sequest.
Yeah.
So good.
It was Sequest. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, way to reel
so
it in.
You have no idea. I'm telling you now, Jason, if you could have been in on those meetings. I remember the one on Earth 2 where our boss was literally spinning. I don't think he had been to bed in a week, and was at a meeting at Universal with Steven Spielberg sitting there, sweating profusely, yellow, and blah, 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 doing that drug banter, and us all sitting there just watching these people, looking at the clock, waiting for the moment for him to walk out of the office and be fired. It was
wow.
It was crazy.
But you never saw Spielberg lose it, or did you?
No, but no,
because I can just imagine
you know when he's not happy.
Yeah, okay. But I was just gonna say, like, someone like him. I mean, aside from all of his accolades and stuff like that, I mean, what got him there was his passion, right? So
yes,
you know, he's dialed in, and all these people around in the periphery are doing things like that, spinning around on chairs and meetings and stuff like that. I could just see how it would be hard.
You kind of hear comments like, I thought we discussed it being this way. Like he does that kind of thing. It's like, I'm pretty sure we discussed it being that way.
Passive aggressive.
Not even really, but just being polite, but just kind of like heads are gonna roll if this don't get fixed. You know?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, even if he's wrong, he's right. But
I worship him. So even if he would have lost it, I just think he's terrific. I love everything he does. I don't think there's anything he's done that I haven't liked.
It's cliche to love Spielberg, but
I do.
How can you not?
I know, he's amazing.
Yeah,
he's about due for another like big cool thing, right?
Well, it sounds like you're about due to work with him again, right? Because
yes, I should do some underwater work with him.
Yeah.
What was the last big thing do you think he did? What was the last?
Well, direct or produce? Because directing was. You know, he had that Ready Player One kind of.
Oh yeah, I wasn't into that.
I think,
but a lot of people
Minority Report was probably. I mean, it's a while ago now already.
That was like 15 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like these. It's so funny.
Oh, War of the Worlds. Did he do War of the Worlds?
Yeah, but I think was that before or after? Yeah, he did War of the Worlds.
Before? Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah, it's been a while. I mean, he did the BFG. I kind of wanted it to be a bit better, but
oh yeah, by then I think there was all these movies that came out at the same time about giants, and I don't know, it kind of I wasn't feeling it.
All right, are we ready to move on from Dusk Till Dawn?
Oh my gosh, okay. Dusk Till Dawn. Okay, good. So by the time that I had been starring in movies, and I wanted to stop doing every single film I was doing, I was the lead in like a major horror franchise. And for me, it was terrific. For Hollywood, it was not terrific. They were stopped. They were not auditioning me for anything else.
Oh,
So if I was in something scary, they would not call me in.
really?
Oh, I said, okay, I got to stop saying yes to everything. The only thing I hadn't done was like Hellraiser and Michael Myers. That was the only thing I hadn't done, honestly. And if I would have had my way, I want to collect them all.
You got to close it off. Yeah, I know.
I know. I still will.
Do you have OCD? Because if you do, then that's got to be killing you.
Well, the one thing that drives me crazy is that everyone says it all the time. They're like, when are you going to be with Michael Myers? When are you going to get killed by Myers? I'm like, oh, God. I don't know. I'm not cool enough. Like most directors, like I'm not cool enough for most directors. There's got to be somebody that's going to understand, you know, like Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie is not putting William Butler in a was it Halloween movie? Yeah. Well, I don't think he has that problem anymore. Well, but anyway, maybe he should have. So yeah, he should have. Maybe I could have elevated it. But anyway, so I was kind of saying, okay, here's the plan. They have these things in Hollywood called under fives, and it's when you go on a TV show and you agree to do 5 lines and under, and most people don't do it. But I told my agent, if it's a major TV show, I will do under 5s for the next year. I want to be on a TV show. So I'll do 5 lines and under. I don't have to be the lead. I just want to get seen by the networks so they get that I'm not just good with a hatchet in my forehead. So I went in on Murphy Brown, and the casting director was just such a bitch, and there was no chairs in the lobby, and there was no, you know, according to her, no bathroom on the Warner Brothers lot. And I just was so ready for a break from acting that I went to Greg Nicotero, and I just said, you know, I'm gonna stop auditioning for a little while. I don't know how long this is gonna last. He was very, very close friends with me at the time. I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do. He's like, come and work for me. So he would put me on shows whenever.
And this was what year?
Oh my gosh, probably what, 96, 97, around then. It seems
so he, I mean, because he wasn't the name that he is now, but he was getting.
No, but he was a big deal still.
Yeah.
But you know, the funny thing about Dusk Till Dawn is, you know, I was originally supposed to be in Dusk Till Dawn. Do you know that?
No, I did not know that.
So right after Night of the Living Dead, Bob Kurtzman wrote the story from Dusk Till Dawn, and he was going to direct it. And we shot a demo reel for him to a proof of concept reel. It was the same story, and people in Winnebago going, and it was me, and it was Joe Pilata. Do you know Joe Pilata? He was from one of the George Romero zombie movies. I think Tony Todd. A bunch of people were supposed to be it. Mosley, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
And so I start seeing in the trades that Dusk Till Dawn is going to go, and I get really excited, like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. And I stop hearing from Bob, and I'm like, what the fuck? We're like friends, right? So I go in there one day, he's like, I'm like, what? He's like, Quentin's doing Dusk Till Dawn now. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? He goes, yeah, and you're not in it anymore. I was like, what? He goes, even worse. Your character is being played by a small Chinese boy. I was like,
that was you.
That's showbiz.
That was you, eh?
Yeah. So instead of playing a Chinese boy, which I think I would have been great at,
I think
so. Greg goes, just come to the shop, and the first job I did, Dusk Till Dawn, is the vampire one. Yes. What's the other one where the skeletons come to life? I worked on
Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness, yeah. So anyway, so my job on Dusk Till Dawn was when you stake the vampires, they turn into these like gooey puddles.
Yeah.
So my job for a month and a half was to take plastic sheet, put it on the ground, and put rope on the ground, and dump expanding polyfoam into these weird, and put skeleton heads in there. I made all the like melted bodies. So when you get stabbed and you turn into a CG thing, I did the rubber part of it. I must have made like 100 of them. Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. I mean, Tarantino, Clooney. I mean, Clooney wasn't who he is now, but he was still. I mean, we knew that at that point he was going to be massive. I mean, you had Harvey Keitel, and then Tom Savini, which was. I mean, I'm forgetting some high. I mean, there's a whole bunch. That must have been a blast to shoot. Like, were you on full on?
No, they went. I don't know where they. I think I want to say they went to Valencia. I'm not sure though. They could have gone to Texas. I don't. It's supposed to take place in Texas, right? Because what's his name? The director's from that area, I think. I could be making this up, but no, I didn't do that. Yeah, Robert Rodriguez. I think wherever he's from, that's where they filmed it. I could be making that part up though. I just did all the LA stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I think before or after that, oh my gosh, I helped Dremel and put together the army of skeletons. I mean, literally there were hundreds of them that we molded these skeletons and trimmed all the stuff.
For Army of Darkness.
Jobs like that are really, really fun though. You sit there with music in your ears all day long and make terrific money. Like, yeah, if you can stand the sound of a Dremel like going, 10 hours a day. Like,
yeah.
But
and there was no danger of you. There was no danger of you like bouncing back and forth between actor and makeup. Like people thinking, okay, now he's just doing makeup. Let's just get him for makeup.
No one really. Well, two things about LA. If someone recognizes you in LA, they don't tell you. Okay. You don't know. But I also was not famous. I was known by horror fans. So when Robert Rodriguez came into the shop more than once, I felt shitty, but no one else did. I felt embarrassed because it's like, oh, look who's here, dremeling skeletons or whatever, I felt weird about it. Oh, okay. But it was by my own hand. I wanted to take a break from acting, and in order for me to stay that I've said it 1,000 times, for me to stay that skinny and for me to stay fit and looking like who Hollywood wanted me to look like, which wasn't good looking, but it was hard for me, really hard.
Nah, and you had the look. You had the look.
I was starving. Come on. Jason. I was starving for 14 years.
Well,
I would go. I know I should be starving more often. No, but I would go to bed. For you. I would go to bed and stare up at the ceiling and go like, "My God, please let the sunrise so I can have a sandwich." Yeah. I mean, it was bad. So I didn't really mind it that much, but anyway. And then Quentin, I knew before Quentin had done anything. I knew really? Quentin. Yeah, Quentin was a friend of Ken Hall's and all those guys that from the Valley. That I mean,
that's cool.
Quentin was just a little jabbery guy that worked at a video store. That's a true story. I mean, he was certainly a brilliant person. Like he was literally a walking encyclopedia. Not that I ever had any in-depth conversations with him, but when I was around him, I think I may or may not have accidentally snorted heroin in his presence once. And we went to Denny's, and I remember staring and watching his head melt for a couple hours on Christmas Eve.
And his facial features lend itself well to that.
Yes, it was going like that. Yeah. It was going like that, like it was waiting for it to touch in the middle. But awesome. Yeah. So anytime I saw him, but the funny thing is okay. So here's the trajectory of, not that I ever had a friendship with him, but we definitely knew each other. Mm-hmm. So we were both nobodies. Then I became William Butler and was working, and so I thought I was the cherry on the icing of the cake of our group of friends. So I kind of carried myself like I was a hot shot, and then he became Quentin Tarantino. And no matter how much I chased his cake to try to get my cherry on there, it never happened.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he was like, nice try. You should have thought about that earlier, prick.
I don't blame you for chasing though. I mean, that's
no, he's brilliant. Yeah.
We talk about Spielberg. Nothing. We talk about Spielberg, and I don't know. I mean, he's right up there.
My things are going dead. Let me
You okay?
Anyway, yeah, I'm good. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think I'm okay.
Okay, so sorry. No. You're the star. I'm just a guy with a big mic, big fat red mic.
Yes. No, I'm good. And so yes, you did ask all the questions that no one has ever asked. You were right.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's the story of my life. I kind of go places that I probably shouldn't, or most people don't go, and then I end up nowhere. But with you, I ended up with some good stories. So it's all right. It's all good.
If I answer the question, why did you go pee in the woods on Friday the 13th? One more fucking time, I'm going to take hostages.
Woods is woods, right?
Well, no, I just say, well, they staple my paycheck to the tree. That's usually what I say.
Well, we're going to get there, but that wasn't going to be a question of mine. I want to know more about you than, what I've seen on the screen. I want to know behind.
Careful.
So
be careful of those questions. Yeah.
You don't scare me. You look like such a nice guy.
I'm not. I'm crazy. Anyway.
All right. So I'm going to give you something.
You're crazier though.
Let's just focus on you. And
okay. Well, I'm going to have you on my podcast. I don't have, but I'll invent it.
Absolutely. And if Slices goes places, which of course it's going to, right? And then I would be happy to be a guest of yours.
Okay,
but
great.
I am going to be a little less original with my next direction here, but I do need to ask. I want to know about your relationship with Charles Mann, because this is someone that has meant a lot to you, and I don't know if you could do it in a short period of time, but
yes, I can. Well, I like I said, I started working for Butler, and I really wanted to be an actor, and I knew that I could. I knew that I knew how to act, but I knew I wasn't really, by Hollywood's terms for what they were hiring, I wasn't special in that way. That back then you had to be completely beautiful. Now it's a much more realistic look for actors, but back then you had to really have something going on, and you had to be fuckable in order to get an agent and to get booked. And let's face it, I wasn't. So I really worked really hard, and I thought, what I'll do is I'll go on set and I'll learn how people do this stuff, and I'll figure it out. And being on set, I realized that most of the people that were really good looking are horrible actors who cannot remember any of their lines. And I think it really helped me going, well, at least I know my lines. And so John Beekler picked up the phone and called Charlie and said, this guy's a decent person and he wants to be an actor. And he's working with us. He'll be on set. Is there anything that he can audition for? And Charlie called me into the office without even knowing me. I think I was barely 18 years old. Called me in and said, what do you want to do? I had my picture, which is so laughable. This picture, I look like David Hasselhoff in it. And
I've seen some of your pictures.
It's so funny. And they said, all right, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I in theater, I play friends. All right, well, we'll put you in something. So he let me go and audition to be in Ghoulies 2. And I got the part, mostly because I was breathing and going to be in Italy. But from then on, he just kept hiring me. And I ended up going back and forth between acting and doing effects coordinating for MMI, which is John Beekler's shop, and acting for Charles Band for the next better part of like 6 years. And I mean, living in Rome at a 5-star hotel, eating the best food in Italy, getting per diem, having a driver. I never paid for anything. And Charlie Band was the most generous, positive, kind person that I had known, and a really, I'm not going to say father figure, I'm going to say brother figure, who was just a remarkable person. And since then, whether I don't want to work on the project or I do, because of the fact that he afforded me such a great life, anything he asked me to do, I will do. And so there have been times where I did not want to direct fucking Demonic Toys 2, but I speak some shitty Italian, and I like working there, and I like being there. So there have been times where I've made allowances for him, as certainly he made allowances for me when I was a kid. And he's so just he really, he does in the sense that there have been times where I've wanted to murder him. He has his own special style of working, but also the good things that he's brought to my life and the belief that he has in me by far outweighs any of the stuff that is bothersome to me.
That's awesome.
Working for the company.
What's good about that is, like, I mean, you've known him now for what, 20 years, at least
35 years.
35 years. So I mean, and the fact that, like, in this business and in LA, that you could say that where you were with him on day one, you're still there now. I mean, that says a lot about him. It says a lot about you, though, as well.
Yes, he's an amazing guy. Like, I mean, he's really going through a hard time right now, but he's just, I just did this. I mean, he's literally, See, this is the thing about him is he doesn't spend money on stuff. That we all know. But I will tell you this, that he'll invite you to dinner and say, I was thinking about the last thing you did and I really like it. Would you like to do something? Like, I was like, yeah, I'd like to do like an ongoing TV series. Okay. Well, if you can think of an idea, just let me know. And then I write up, I want to do something that's an homage to From Beyond and, my friend Stuart Gordon's work. And I write it in a one page. He's like, hey, I really love this. And it's like, you want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Here's a check. I'll see you at the screening. I mean, it's like that. Like,
Yeah, he sounds like a
there's no
real hard
meddling.
guy to get along with, and it sounds
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah, he's just
throwing
like,
you some
here's a
horrible
check. See you at
breaks.
the screening. Like, and
That's awesome.
he reads the script. He
Yeah.
knows if it sucks. By now, if anything, I'm a writer, so I knew I could write this thing,
Wow.
and so he just lets you be creative. He does not stomp you creatively at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the upside. The downside is the tremendous amount of thinking and planning and begging that you have to do if you want a certain level of quality, because there are people that will work for the rates that a small movie can afford. And let's face it, nobody is selling small movies anymore except for him. You're not making your money back. So we all know the breaking point. And so if you want to do it, you want to keep doing it, you have to work at that breaking point. But in order for it to look good, you can't just hire some guy who turns on a camcorder with a thing on a tripod, which is what you can get for those rates. Like, there's a lot of begging, and that part for me can be exhausting.
For sure.
I just now decompressed after Miskatonic U. It was a really easy shoot for me. The actors were amazing. Closing the books out on that show was not easy, but the end result has been really amazing. So,
and I just want to
I can't wait for you to see it.
For people who don't know, Charles Band is the creator of Full Moon, which
and Empire Pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in just from my personal point of view, I remember in the early 90s, it just seemed like horror was really in a rough spot. And that was kind of a special time for me, because while I was living off the 80s slashers and the 70s great films, the 90s were really, really looking kind of grim. And Full Moon came in, and I remember discovering it, and it was just like, where's this been? And
I know,
because it was like, as an aspiring filmmaker that I was back then, it had the behind the scenes on the VHS, which at the time was unheard of, like in DVD and Blu-ray. Like kids now, they just assume that's all part of it, but back then that was such a brilliant idea, and it just brought you in so much more. And I so much passion for it when I talk, as you could see. And
you just cannot believe how much he himself loves what he does.
Yeah,
when he's explaining something to you, even an idea that I think, if I don't like it, to see him getting so excited the way he's describing, this is what happens and blah 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 blah, and he genuinely loves it. He's not just doing it to phone it in. He really is a huge part of the whole thinking of that company. I mean, he wouldn't have been doing it for all this time and keeping it alive, had he not had such a huge passion for it. He's a really great guy. I really love him.
Yeah, and that's good to hear, because like I said, I remember back in the day when horror films were very, very thinned out. Full Moon was there, and I just loved it. I loved his little intros at the beginning, like of making it and everything. It's embedded in my head, and that's just I love it. And the other thing about Full Moon, and this is kind of something that I've noticed in your work as a filmmaker, I mean, they really didn't do slashers. They had a lot more substance to their, and I love slashers, but I'm just saying they had a lot more, like there was a lot more creatures,
magic, and
magic and wizardry. And it was kind of a cool little angle. Like, I mean, sometimes, you like I said, you want that slasher, but at the same time, Full Moon was providing this alternative. And it was awesome. It was so great. And I've noticed that in a lot of your work. So was that like, were you inspired by Full Moon, or was that in you to begin with? Like, we're talking like, Gingerdead Man and things like that.
Well, and Gingerdead Man was actually a sketch that I had written and pitched to Mad TV, and they passed on it because they decided to do Snuggles, the Snuggle Bear, which was a better idea. And so I just threw my sketch away, and then things
were you
really
writing for
cooking.
them? Sorry, were you writing?
No,
for
but I wanted to write for them so badly that I would write sketches and I would show up there and either slide sketches under the door or give them to my friends that were actors on the show and try to get them
some balls.
I didn't give a shit. I would bluff my way. If you only knew, back before 9/11, you could bluff your way onto any lot, including Universal or Paramount, and I would do it all.
Good
so so anyway, he calls me one day, he goes, "What's the goofiest idea that you ever had? What's something that's really crazy?" I was like, "Gingerdead Man." He's like, "Gingerdead Man?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a sketch." He's like, "You're filming it in a month." And I was like, "Oh shit." He gave me $500. I wrote this screenplay. I gave it to him. He's like, "Wow, thanks for writing a $5 million movie." I'm like, "What?" Like, "We're not doing your screenplay. I'm going to write my own." So him and some knucklehead wrote the first Gingerdead Man, which in my opinion is the best one out of all of them. And then he came to me on the, he wanted to do another one. He was like, "Okay, you can do whatever you can do part 2. Gingerdead Man 1 did really well, and you can do part 2 if you want." I was like, "I'm only going to do it if I can do just outrageously stupid, like Mad TV stuff." And he's like, "Okay." And then I crucified Gingerdead Man. I think that's the one where he gets crucified. But anyway, I think Hitler was in the other one. But anyway, so, that was mostly, that's not my joy in my career is doing Gingerdead Man movies. But, we smoked a little weed and we came up with it. It worked. It worked or it didn't work is what I like to say.
All right. So we'll go back a little bit further then. I want to go to Madhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So was this like the first time you had all the hats on and full rank?
On Madhouse, I was at Fox Family Channel, and I had met Tom Fox, who's no relation to Fox Family Channel, who was doing the Return of the Living Dead sequels, and we had written them, and it just went. The movies were in turnaround, and then we made it into one movie, then we made it into 2 movies. It was all this shit, and this company that we had been dealing with, at one point, they wanted the Living Dead movie that was one script, but they didn't want to call it Living Dead. They want to call it something else, and then it fell apart. It was a huge deal. It was like a huge movie. It was kind of like, what's the one with the Red Devil guy that's a superhero? It was kind of like that a little bit. Hellboy. Yeah, it was like Hellboy. And it fell apart, and she's like, "Listen," and I was just heartbroken because it was like a $300,000 sale. I remember it's when El Nino came to town and it was pouring rain, and she called me and said they pulled the plug on your movie. Oh, I was so sad. And she said, "But," and this, you hear this in Hollywood 100 times. She's like, "But I swear to you, if you come in here next week with another idea, they are all over you. If you come in here with an idea, they're probably going to let you do a movie, but you got to come in with something that's good." And I just was like, "Oh, fuck off." Like, I thought she was telling me. Well, then, of course, because I'm a whore, I hang up the phone, call Aaron Strugoni, my writing partner. I'm like, they're saying if we pitch something else, we might be able to do something else. And so he's like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "I don't know. Let's do something self-contained, something crazy, haunted, insane asylum." And we thought of it in the weekend. We typed it into 2 pages. On Monday, I brought it in to her. She liked it. She set up a pitch meeting. I went in and pitched it. And a month later, I was getting on a plane to go to Romania to film it and direct it.
Romania.
And the only thing I had directed at that point was
Black Velvet.
Power Rangers. Yeah, Power Rangers and Black Velvet Pantsuit. So, yeah, I think, and a ton of things for Fox Family, but in the movie world didn't matter. Like, I had been directing Mary-Kate and Ashley and all kinds of shit like that. So I got that. And I would say mostly my work in commercials is what influenced the way I directed that movie, with the way I cut things and the way I did a lot of little subliminal things. I'm doing a lot of that in this Miskatonic U thing, but I would say mostly my commercial work is what influenced that film the most. That and my love for all films that are about insane asylums.
Awesome.
One
Awesome.
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, there's a little eyedropper of everything in that movie. I really love that movie.
That's cool. All right.
Even though I wanted to burn the Paramount Studios lockdown at the end of it, but that's a whole other. Chapter 6 in my new book, May 1st.
And we're
Pre-sales now available.